I'm enraged, just like a lion, trapped inside of a cage. I'm the real king.
Before hip-hop dominated mainstream radio, before platinum records became hip-hop's currency, 9 underground albums were changing the entire culture forever. These were the forgotten classics that built the foundation we stand on today. Albums that sold modestly when they dropped, but whose influence is absolutely immeasurable. Let's bring these back from the underground vault, starting with number 1. Number 1, Grandmaster Flash and the Furious 5 with The Message, 1982.
Don't push me, call, close to the edge, trying.
When this album dropped on the independent Sugar Hill Records label, nobody expected it to become a Grammy Award winner. It took them 17 years to get that Grammy, but when it arrived in 1999, it proved what hip-hop heads already knew. This album was revolutionary. The Message peaked at number 50 on the Billboard 200, respectable for an independent label release, but that number does not capture what this album actually did. It took hip-hop from party music into social commentary. The title track became hip-hop's most sampled song ever. Artists are still sampling The Message today. The production came from Sylvia Robinson, the legendary Sugar Hill Records founder herself, and her husband Joe. They understood that hip-hop could be both artistic and socially conscious. Members of Grandmaster Flash and Furious 5 fought bitterly over who deserved credit for changing hip-hop. They would not speak to each other for over 20 years, but their music spoke louder than their silence. Public Enemy, KRS-One, Rakim, every socially conscious rapper since 1982 owes this album a debt of gratitude. The Message proved that hip-hop could address police brutality, poverty, and addiction with artistic integrity. It set the blueprint for everything that came after. Number 2, Rakim with Eric B. and Rakim, Paid in Full, 1987.
I used to roll up, this is a hole up. Ain't nothing funny, stop smiling. You still don't nothing move but the money. But now I learned.
This album did not hit number 1 on the charts. It peaked at number 58 on the Billboard 200, but it did something more important. It changed what being a rapper meant. Rakim created the internal rhyme scheme, that complex wordplay structure that separates real rappers from everybody else. Every technical MC you know owes their foundation to this album. Nas, Jay-Z, Black Thought, all of them point back to Paid in Full as the moment that lyricism became sacred. Eric B. handled production with jazz and funk samples layered with cinematic scratches. Together they created something nobody had heard before. Here is the paradox. An album that would influence literally every technically skilled rapper for the next 30 years sold estimates of only 250,000 to 350,000 copies when it first dropped. It was retroactively certified platinum in 2013, decades after the artistic damage was done. Eric B. and Rakim could not stay together as a creative partnership, but their influence never stopped. They proved that commercial success is not the measure of artistic impact. Number 3, Boogie Down Productions, Criminal Minded, 1987.
You settle for a pebble, not a stone like a rebel. KRS-One is the holder of a...
This album merged street authenticity with political consciousness. KRS-One and his DJ Scott La Rock created something dangerous and beautiful. They made street narratives that were actually intelligent. The album was released in 1987. 4 months later, on August 27, 1987, DJ Scott La Rock was murdered in the South Bronx. He was trying to mediate a street dispute when he was killed. The very streets he rapped about took him down. That tragic reality became part of the album's story. KRS-One continued Boogie Down Productions as a solo project, eventually releasing By All Means Necessary 9 months after his partner's death. An album featuring Malcolm X on the cover, processing grief through political consciousness. Criminal Minded proved that you could be from the street, talk about the street, and still have something intelligent to say. Nas built Illmatic on this blueprint. Tupac understood this template. Every street rapper who has something to say owes Boogie Down Productions gratitude. The album that peaked at number 29 on the Billboard 200 created a legacy worth millions. Number 4, Public Enemy. It takes a nation of millions to hold us back, 1988.
Don't believe the hype, it's a sequel. As an equal, can I get this through to you?
This album peaked at number 98 on the Billboard 200, a major label release that reached number 98. Think about that. An album so radical, so confrontational, that a major label could barely market it. Def Jam Recordings put out one of the most uncompromising albums in hip-hop history, and mainstream radio responded by largely ignoring it. The Bomb Squad produced this album. Eric Vietnam Sadler, Carl Ryder, Keith Shockley, Hank Shockley, they created what I can only describe as a wall of sound. Dozens of samples layered together into organized chaos. It sounded dangerous because it was dangerous. The message was radical. The execution was uncompromising. Chuck D rapped with revolutionary consciousness. Flavor Flav provided entertainment energy. Terminator X cut and scratched with precision. Together they created hip-hop as protest. Fight the Power became a civil rights anthem without ever being a radio hit. The song appeared on the Do the Right Thing film soundtrack in 1989. It became culturally immense. Yet the album that contained the DNA of that song only peaked at number 98 on the Billboard 200. That gap between cultural impact and commercial performance defines what this entire list is about. Public Enemy proved that hip-hop could be politically radical and still matter. Every conscious rapper since 1988 follows the blueprint Public Enemy created. Number 5. Slick Rick. The Great Adventures of Slick Rick, 1988. This man had an eye patch. That was not a fashion choice. That was a childhood accident, but he turned it into an icon. More importantly, he turned an entire album into a narrative experience. Before concept albums were common, Slick Rick understood that hip-hop could tell connected stories. Children's Story is maybe the most famous track. It tells a narrative about a young person's journey into crime from beginning to arrest. It is like a short film in song form. That structure became a template. Slick Rick proved that hip-hop albums did not need to be a collection of standalone tracks. They could be cohesive stories. Nas would build Illmatic with this understanding. Jay-Z would construct the blueprint with narrative flow. Kanye West would make concept albums a requirement. All of that traces back to Slick Rick understanding that hip-hop was storytelling. Slick Rick was arrested in 1990 and served prison time from 1991 to approximately 1995. His career was interrupted at its creative peak. When he returned, the hip-hop landscape had shifted, but his influence never stopped. The album that peaked at number 51 on the Billboard 200 shaped how hip-hop albums are constructed to this day. He proved that commercial success is optional when you are creating something genuinely innovative. Number 6, Big Daddy Kane. Long Live the Kane, 1988.
Joy with your hearing as I entertain, so hip hip parade, long live the Kane.
This man was maybe the most technically skilled MC of the entire 1980s. Incredible internal rhyme schemes, rapid-fire delivery with absolute clarity, complex metaphorical language, and yet most people have never heard of him. Prince Paul and Marley Marl produced this album. They created funk and jazz-sampled beats that gave Kane space to display technical mastery. Ain't No Half-Steppin' and Raw were underground classics. They still sound incredible, but this album peaked at number 46 on the Billboard 200, appeared to Nas and Jay-Z, but arriving through a completely different commercial path. Kane prioritized respect over commercial success, and it worked. Every technical MC respects Big Daddy Kane. The album that influenced every great MC in the 1990s remained almost invisible to mainstream audiences. That is the tragedy and the triumph of Big Daddy Kane. He did not compromise, he did not chase commercial success. He created art at the highest technical level for an audience that appreciated technical excellence. 35 years later, MCs still cite Big Daddy Kane as foundational to their craft. Number 7, MC Lyte. Lyte as a Rock, 1987.
Light as a rock, or I should say a boulder, rolling down your neck, pounding on your shoulders, never show.
When female rappers were marginalized in the hip-hop industry, when they were expected to be either novelty acts or sex objects, MC Lyte said no. She approached hip-hop with the same technical seriousness as her male peers, and the mainstream almost completely ignored her. This was the first female rapper album to take hip-hop craft seriously. Not as entertainment, not as sexuality, but as legitimate MC skill. Lyte as a Rock, Girls, 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 10% Diss. These were songs about competitive battling and technical ability. Queen Latifah was doing parallel work, and together they created space for female hip-hop artistry, but the mainstream did not know their names. The album peaked at number 68 on the Billboard 200, a respectable chart position that does not capture what MC Lyte actually accomplished. She created a template for female MCs that still exists today. Lauryn Hill understood this template. Nicki Minaj built on this foundation. 35 years later, female MCs are still following the blueprint MC Lyte created when mainstream hip-hop wanted to ignore her. Number 8, Kool Moe Dee. How You Like Me Now, 1987.
She's jocking. Now how you like me now?
This man started his career in the pop rap novelty era with the Treacherous 3. By 1987, he decided to reinvent himself. He wanted to be taken seriously as a hip-hop artist, so he made an album that demanded respect. The Treacherous 3 was novelty rap. Kool Moe Dee wanted something else. He wanted technical credibility. How You Like Me Now represented that transition. The production came from Howie T and Kurt Woodley, mixed funk and samples with live instrumentation. Kool Moe Dee brought competitive battling energy and intellectual presence. It was an album about becoming serious. The album peaked at number 48 on the Billboard 200. It represented a generation shift. The novelty rap era was ending. Technical hip-hop was becoming the standard. Kool Moe Dee did not achieve massive mainstream success, but he influenced the artistic standards of hip-hop. He showed that artists could evolve, they could take themselves seriously, they could demand respect. The album that hit number 48 on the Billboard 200 represented a cultural turning point. Number 9, Just Ice, Original Gangster, 1987.
But Just Ice started solid and steady. To hear my vocab, you might think it's bad.
This album did not chart on the Billboard 200, zero chart presence. It sold somewhere between 30,000 and 50,000 copies. Estimates only, nobody really knows. This is the definition of underground. Here is the thing about Just Ice. Very little is documented about this artist. Biography is sparse. Cultural impact is unclear. But the fact that this album existed, that it was released on Sleeping Bag Records in 1987, that it went almost completely unheard, that is exactly what it means to be truly underground. The original gangster concept existed before West Coast gangster rap became a commercial phenomenon. Just Ice was doing something raw and street-oriented when nobody was paying attention. Just Ice represents the absolute furthest corner of underground hip-hop, an album that literally disappeared into obscurity. Not even hip-hop heads remember this release. But it existed, it was made, someone thought these songs mattered. That is the beautiful tragedy of underground hip-hop. Sometimes the most authentic art reaches almost nobody. Just Ice is a reminder that hip-hop has layers of underground that go deeper than we can document. 9 albums, 9 stories of artists who created something revolutionary and received almost no commercial acknowledgement. These were not failures. They were artists choosing integrity over commercial compromise, choosing artistic vision over mainstream palatability. Some of them eventually got retroactive recognition, platinum certifications decades after release, Grammy Awards that came too late. Others remain completely forgotten. The 1980s were not the era of underground hip-hop by accident. The infrastructure did not exist for these artists to achieve mainstream success. Independent labels were scrappy, radio did not play hip-hop, MTV barely acknowledged the culture. So these 9 albums were released into a world that was not ready for them. And somehow, through block parties and DJ radio shows and word of mouth within the hip-hop community, they mattered anyway. The message taught us about social commentary. Paid in Full changed what lyricism meant. Criminal Minded proved street and intelligence could coexist. It Takes a Nation of Millions showed hip-hop could be radical. The Great Adventures taught us narrative structure. Long Live the Kane set technical standards. Lyte as a Rock created space for female artistry. How You Like Me Now represented evolution. And Original Gangster reminded us that authentic art sometimes reaches nobody, and that is still valuable. These 9 albums changed hip-hop forever. Most people have never heard them. That is the definition of underground. That is the beauty of hip-hop. If you appreciate hip-hop authenticity, if you respect artists who choose integrity over commercial success, these 9 albums deserve your attention. Links to all of them are in the description below. Many are available on streaming platforms now. Rediscover the underground, support the original artists. And let us know in the comments which underground 80s album changed your hip-hop understanding.